All right, part 3. Let's go. Just finished playing Mage Arena. Fantastic game. You see this? Go buy this game. $3. God tier game. You speak your spells out loud and fight people. It's good. All right, let's go. I'm extremely excited once I'm at a good spot with C++ to go back to gaming and start making some real game projects. That's what I'm gonna do. I might make some C++ straight stuff too, but I also want, like, that would be cool. Yeah, making a copy of Liar's Bar is a good project in C++, and then I can go back to making shit in Unreal, but with no limitations, with C++ under my belt, or at least enough of it under my belt. I think that might be the strat. And then VR. Write a class named Ball, 2 private data members, 1 for a color. Okay, and the color's a standard string, and radius double. Class with 2 private members. And a function to print them out. Okay. So it's a ball and a color. Color and a radius. Okay. Class ball. Private. Private, standard string, color. Double, radius. Public. Constructor. Ball. Takes a current standard string reference. Member radius, member color. Reference, color, and the radius. Color is color. Radius, or oops, radius. Color. Nothing else in the constructor. And then printing. I don't like that. Oh, that's an emotional ass voice. Is this? Who's the singer? Oh, this is emotional. What the fuck? I can't tell if it's real or not. It sounds real. And then get color. Turn color. Well, does this need to be const? I mean, we may as well make this. Excuse me. Cool. So we could change these to be whatever. All this is doing is getting the color and getting the radius and doing something. But all we really need are the getters or private data members. Cool. Oh, well, we could do it either way. I did a const standard string reference, but you could also do a string. Identical. Why do we make it a non-member function instead of a member function? Because we already have getters access our implementation, well, access our data members. We don't need anything else inside the class that being every other file. It depends program by program. Why do we make mcolor a standard string instead of a standard string view? We made it a standard string view, and then we initialized the object with a constructor. It would be staring at those temporaries, which if we pass C-style literal, I don't think it would be an issue because we're passing blue here to the constructor as a string view, so it's a string view to this color blue. I don't think it would necessarily be bad, but since it's a string view and this was a struct, maybe a temporary one, it wouldn't exist, or not a struct, sorry, a standard string, it might not exist after. So the point is that we want all to actually own that value. We don't want it to be looking at something else, then, I mean, effectively it would be a dangling pointer, really. Yes, exactly. Yes. 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 Yep. Yes. Nice. Default constructor, default argument. Default constructor accepts argument. Holy shit, this voice, man. That would make sense. Value initialization for default versus default. Couldn't this be undefined then? Used as is? Because, excuse me, if we have a constructor with no arguments, there's no explicit initializer in constructor, then it's not doing anything to initialize the value. Therefore, isn't it just default initialized there? Versus here, it would be 0. Here, no? Oh, default arguments? Gotcha. So we could say, like what? Constructor, create gun, maybe? Or gun, then magazine. Okay, yeah, we could do that. Sure. We could do did it again. What was I doing here? Oh, default arguments. Let's just say sure. Interesting. We are explicitly specifying though. Well, we could not. So 15 would never happen. We could say 20. It'll get 20 because it's specific and it overrides the default argument. We could leave it blank. 30 is the default argument, and in no case does it not have a value here, and then it uses the default. Never. So specify 12, leave it blank, 30. And in no case does it get 15? Because if it's for aggregates, aggregates don't have constructors. So if we don't have a default value, then it would be uninitialized, right? But in this case, it's the same regardless because it still calls the constructor, which in this case has a default argument. So it's never going to be undefined. Do what, 28 more minutes? Yeah, that'll be 45 of study, and then it'll be 45 of the final. We'll do 4.5 hours of study today. It's okay. I'm studying with the other stuff that I'm doing, and I count it as being valuable, so it's fine. I just want to try and get as much study as possible on the weekends. A default constructor is one that has default arguments for everything. Okay. And if that's the case, you may as well not even have them here. Seems like, why even have them here? You may as well just make them default arguments. Constructors are functions that could be overloaded, meaning that I could call one to initialize both objects or both data members, or I could do one that only initializes one. So it constructs it with the proper constructor. So it's 0, 0. So if we call it with nothing, default value initialized like this with nothing. No difference here. Then non-default, passing both. You may as well just do this. Well, and that's because what, 0 and 0 the default arguments here? Oh, a default is one that accepts no arguments. Oh, got you. Meaning that we can call it with no arguments. Okay, so yeah, this one has arguments, this one doesn't. I could well, parameters in this case, but yeah. Well, yeah, because otherwise it's ambiguous. Yeah, if we have two here, it won't know which one to call. Are we using the default arguments or none? Do we do foo constructed or foo something something constructed? An implicit default constructor. Ah, so if we don't even have a constructor, it's default. Okay. Implicit constructor. Ooh, nothing. Yep. An explicitly defaulted constructor equals default. So if we were going to write, well, why even write the constructor in that case? Why even make a user-defined constructor? Empty. Oh, that's the point. Okay, gotcha. So the point is that if we already have a constructor that takes arguments that isn't default, the compiler will not generate a default one. So that means that if we call it, it's going to use these default arguments. Well, hold. If I call it with nothing, don't we want, like, I struggle to understand why we would want that. Oh, wait, we just can't. Oh, that makes sense. There's no, doesn't have a construct, it's expecting something. So this only works if we have a default argument. So we would want, why does it have more than one default constructor? Oh, the point here is that, okay. That one could be a default constructor. Okay, so if we have a default constructor like this, we can't leave it as a default argument. So we could say either specify value or don't. If we don't, you get 15. Okay. So if we want to call it without arguments, we do this. If we want to call it with arguments, we do this. Okay. What would be an example there? Why would we want that though? Wouldn't we just use default arguments like regular? Like, it seems like you have two options. You could have a constructor that's not default, but you could have, yeah, you could just have a default constructor that has default arguments so that if you omit it, the default arguments are used. If you don't omit them, then whatever you put in is used. That's the same as putting in a default constructor with nothing, which defaults to the default initializers, and another constructor that is explicit. Either put values up here, and create a default, or don't put values up here and put it in. Seems like this is easier then, huh? So we have default, and we want whatever values up here, 12 and 10. Instead of foo, something is this, something is that. Like, this is just simpler syntax. And if we want to override them, boom. But in that case, we don't have to override. We don't have to do both. Like in that case, we could do one and then leave the other. Here, this nothing will match. We either call it with 2 or 0. Yeah, so instead of saying have this, then generating empty foo, behaves differently. Explicitly defaulted versus empty. So it's user defined, it's default initialized. But if it has a default one that is not, that is defined, it's either implicit or default, it's 0 initialized. So isn't this safer then? Compared to doing a user defined one? Yep. If it's user defined, no. Do equals default or nothing. Oh, that's because you didn't have a default, you didn't have a value initialized guy. This was just a test. Do this, you're still safe. Okay. So instead of assigning to each one twice, first nothing and then gotcha. So you don't have a user provided one, meaning that it's implicit. It's 0 initialized, then it gets whatever values you need. Could make this make sense. Not 0 initialize, leave it alone, and then initialize one time. Tired of that. Gotcha. Meaning if you have a user defined one, it wasn't doing, it was failing with aggregate initialization. Default, it wasn't failing. Yeah, with no initializers. Yeah. Gotcha. That way, if we don't specify it, it comes with one for denominator. So we can do fraction 3 and 5, whatever and 1. We can see that the values are 0 and 1. Yep. We have both or none. Oh, well, yeah, if there's no default constructor here, and it only has one constructor that takes a name and an ID, and we provide a name and an ID, then we provide nothing. Nope, there's no default constructor. None that take 0 arguments. That makes sense. You always want there to be that information. So maybe you actually want there to be a compiler error. You don't specify the arguments. Delegating constructors. Reduce redundant code. Okay. Two functions A, B. Yeah, that makes sense. And instead of saying, hey B, do A's thing, how about you just fucking call B and do your thing, huh? Now this. Yeah, piano's great. When a class contains multiple constructors, meaning what, to call one constructor to do something or do something in each, or constructor calls a member function for each, maybe. Okay. Example. Both of these constructors print that. Couldn't you just have the constructor print or call a member function? Is that possible? Delegating meaning what? Delegating functionality to a member function? It seems like that would make sense. Well, actually, I don't really care about this right now. I care about Okay, and let's say the default ID is 1 and the default age is 23. Okay, and we'll say employee hold takes no arguments. Default constructor or fucking did it again. Int ID, int age. They can both do this. And granted, in this case, it really should be so. How about that, huh? They both call construct. In this case, we're creating James as that, and we're in another case we're doing it. But we have another argument, so we have two constructors, one with 2, one with 3. Yep, is it a manager or not? So in one we just leave it, and then we do another one for a manager, whatever. By default, James is false. Okay. Same print statement. We're just gonna make it do a function. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I did. Generally not a good idea to, and it should have been const actually, but it's generally not a good idea to have a constructor print something. This means we can't create an object using it in a case where we don't want to print. Makes sense, because maybe I want to create, well, do I want to create it and not? I guess. Maybe, maybe not. I can just remove it. Easy peasy. Makes sense. So we refactor it by instead making another function that is, oh, and it's private because we don't actually want to print created. That's cool. Okay. In this case, this should be const. And that's it. Okay. Okay, now there's a whole new function just to do it. And the two functions both initialize the same thing. Oh, that's true. It's not, oh, this one's a default, this one's taking parameters. Instead, they're actually both required to take parameters. Calling a constructor in the body of a function creates a temporary object? What the fuck are you talking about? Oh, a temporary object of the, we're talking about a temporary class object? Oh, interesting. So now how does that work? If I call that constructor, we have one constructor that does task A, it initializes these two data members, and another one that if we call three arguments, don't want to, in a case where we specifically don't want to do default arguments, put on one constructor, we can have the constructor with three parameters, call the constructor two, initialize the data member, then it itself could initialize the last one. So if Dave 42 true, say employee 2 is name, whatever. Okay, let's see what's happening. We have one constructor that takes two, one that takes three. This one initializes name and ID, and then prints created. This other one only initializes the is manager, but calls employee to initialize and do that. The problem though is, what does it return? What does it do? It says at first, when we call it with this, this, and this, boom, boom, boom. It calls and says employee. Actually, hold. So when you call that, it should be calling the second constructor, which calls the first, and it says employee Dave created. But then when you check the name doesn't even work. Oh, and is the point there? Well, no. Is the point that when we called it, that it outputs, well, it's outputting M name, so it looks like M name got the value, right? Shit. All right. Continue this tomorrow. No. Okay. 14.12. Excuse me. Fuck, I need water. Be right back. Okay. One. Yo. I'm not putting that in the class. Distance 2 isn't bad. Is that how that works? All right, so if we have 0, 0, 4, 4, okay. All right. 16 plus 16 equals c squared. C equals square root of 32, which is less than 6. So it's probably 5 point something. And that's the same as this minus this. Oh yeah, that makes sense. So it's the square root of well, hold on. A2 minus A1 plus B2 minus B1. Oh, but isn't it squared? Square these guys to sum them, and that gives us c squared, and then we square root it to get equals c, or d in this case. Okay. Does arithmetic have it, or is it C math? Return square root of how do I square something then, huh? I don't want to do this times itself. I mean, I guess I'll just do that. Return square root of something. Well, it's going to be something plus something. But this is really something times something. And this is something times something. And it's really itself. And so it's really mx minus point dot get x. And then again, mx minus point dot get x. And then my minus point dot get y. And y minus point dot get y. hold. Oh, and this should be double, double. I forgot these aren't ints. Okay, point to D. Sure, we'll do X, and it gets 3, 2. Or we could actually just do, let's do that. Nothing. And in this case, we could say point 2D was default, and then point 2D Y 4 4, and then X dot distance or X dot distance to Y. Cool. 5.65. Yeah, fuck all this, bro. This is terrible. I'm gonna just paste this first, and then I'm gonna come up with another. I'm gonna get another quiz because this is terrible. Yeah, nobody wants that. All right, fuck this. This is terrible. Come up with another one. Oh, it doesn't work. Oh, oops. Control. I forgot. For pages, you can go up and down with just home and in. But for text, you need to go. You need to add control in there. Oh. Oh. Okay. This works. I didn't mean to keep the random part in, but it's just better. Oh, well, I wasn't even using Pro Search. Oh wait, well, I ran out, I think. How much? Oh my god, 200 a month. Excuse me. A constructor is a class member function, well, member function called during objects instant. Well, instantiation, runtime instantiation. Constructors are often used to initialize non-aggregate classes private data members. A member initializes. Public members are accessible to other members and to the public. So non-member functions and member functions of other classes access public members. What members? Private members are only accessible to other members of the same class, including other objects of the same class. So non-member functions and member functions of other classes do not have access to private members. Marking a member function as const tells the compiler the function is not doing anything that leads to, well, that leads to mutation of data members. He turns them as const, turns data members as const, or does something else, anything else that doesn't change data. Member initializer list included in a constructor between the signature and body lets us initialize non-aggregate class, initialize data members in non-aggregate classes. Same syntax as aggregates. Like gun, AK-47, 30. Instead of having to value initialize and call setter value. Well, god damn. Doesn't matter how many data members. Example could be map, ancient map, location 1, location 2, location 3. Access functions facilitate encapsulation, the process of hiding data members from public. Excuse me. Letting the interface serve as the mechanism to manipulate and read private data members. Simplifies logic for using classes. Reduces mistakes and bugs. Same making global, or that making global variables const, i.e., don't let the public change data members get direct access. Make the public interface. That way we have greater control, greater error validation, error. Okay. Don't implicitly write aren't comparable to other enumerators static first. And stay with the scope not being placed. Parent scope. Hints and are comparable. Other unscoped enumerators and aggregate initialization. Initialization. Class data members that don't include private. Turn reference to return standard output stream reference. Create a function that returns stream reference, takes standard stream reference, and the object insertion. Perform insertion on the stream reference. Structure useful. They let us find distinct, well, separate objects. They containing 5 cards in a hand. Card a structure hand. Class template argument deduction. CTED process by which compiler produces data member types from data member types and classes specialization. Constructor arguments from unique constructor constructor calls argument combination P producing int making a class definition int data members instantiating the object with int data member. It's been the same with double int double structure are present in but really it's in the file. Function declaration tells the compiler the function that calls to are valid. Linker links this declaration. Definitions. So actually function definition contains actual implementation of the linker put global variables those in namespaces. Reduce name conflicts and if non-const chance of the variable getting updated by mistake. Instead, place global variable namespaces, make them constant. header guard lets us only include code in a file if it hasn't already been filed. This prevents filer definition errors and first coding. Okay. Including a header time includes function object definition. There. Signed integers are positive and negative, with memory split half and half, positive and negative. Unsigned integers are only positive, 0 and up. All memory allocated. I.e., 16 might be negative 32 something, positive 32,000 something, while an unsigned int might be 0 to 1,000. Careful using unsigned ints, especially calculators, especially when subtraction. That it makes local variable get created or get instantiated at runtime instead of function. Instantiated once at runtime instead of time, and delays. Oh my god, I thought I heard my alarm. Delays destruction until the program's end. Their values persist. Function call. Scope is still local. Duration is no longer at lifetime. No longer at lifetime, and all value references are aliases or values that have persistent memory addresses. Not a temporary object or literal. Use them to access values where they are in memory instead of expensively copying them. Expensive. Act of going into memory find value an extra step for fundamental types. Passing by value might be less, might be. Oh shit. Okay. All I have time. No. Almost one. Pass by const value reference. Avoid modifying as non-constant or modifiable L values. L values don't apply. Or if you want to find the L value for const R value for long R value lifetime match layer. Constructor is a class member function called during that. Excuse me. Object creation initialization time. Oh, gotcha. I guess that's true. Right? It wouldn't necessarily be called until the object is actually created, which happens at runtime, but doesn't happen at program start. Yeah, I don't know about that. And yeah, in the constructor, you could also enforce an invariant by making sure that the invariant is true. Time. Friend classes? Is friend a thing? Oh, shit. Oh, friend is actually a thing. Wow. So it's basically, the point here is you're telling the compiler, hey, this is not modifying non-immutable data members. Thus, you can use the function on non-modifiable data members or const objects. Give me. Const member function can't. Yeah. One is that we're calling it for a const object. So we can make a const firearm, and I could call that function to inspect the weapon. It's not changing anything that's not changing. A member function marked const promises not to modify any non-mutable data members. You can only call const member function. Okay. This is good. I needed to get enough information that I'm starting to have some mistakes. Otherwise, if I'm only getting a little bit of information at a time, I don't know. I feel like I'm not pushing myself hard enough. Hold. Oh, wait, what? I made it private? I made it public? Oh, wait, hold. Are you sure, bro? Yeah, I think you're tripping, bro. Part of a constructor that lets us directly initialize member variables before the body runs. That's exactly what I did there. And it's needed for const reference members because those are default initialized. and they aren't given the values that they explicitly need, then they're never going to get it. Because they can't be changed. They're non-mutable. That's already said because it's included in their scope, not their parent scope. Maybe it misinterpreted what I said. So it's not just there, it's also when these other criteria are true. So when there are other requirements that make things not aggregates. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I did an int. It already knows that. So you would do it for a custom type. That makes sense. But then you would have to call it in order to, let's see, do this, take a point, and then we're calling point get x. Yeah, because you can't print the point by default. Makes sense. That's fine. Group related data elements. Yeah, then single name to form a composite type. Okay. It's about deducing the template. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Yes, it's point here is that we're creating a class template, and it's the process by which the compiler deduces specializations of the class template. Sorry. Yeah, it's the template for the specialization. That way, during instantiation, the objects can be created from the template specialization. To deduce the template parameters makes sense. Oh yeah, true. I don't know our value references. Okay. I have to figure out what I want to do next. Let's see. Jesus. Fuck yeah, man. That's sick. I want to do all of this. Alright. Time to go. More tomorrow. It's 4.5 hours today. Not as much as I want, but I'm getting there.